The last pot sat cooling on the stove, its contents untouched. Rowan wiped his hands on his apron for what he thought would be the final time, the fabric worn thin from decades of use. Outside the small restaurant's windows, the neon signs of Station Kronos flickered in their usual chaotic rhythm, casting purple and blue shadows across empty tables that had once been full. Humans didn't belong in the outer reaches. That's what the Galactic Council had made abundantly clear over the past 50 years. Too emotional. Too unpredictable. Too primitive. The newer species, the crystalline Vexstar, the plasma-based Lumin, the hive-minded Chorus, they represented the future. Humans were relics, tolerated only in the backwater stations where their stubbornness still had some use. Rowan had come to Kronos 30 years ago with nothing but a dream and his grandmother's recipes. He'd opened the Ember, a tiny establishment squeezed between a Vexstar data hub and a Chorus breeding facility. No one thought it would last a month. Galactic citizens didn't eat cooked food. It was considered wasteful, inefficient. Why apply heat when nutrient paste could be synthesized in seconds? But Rowan had persisted. He'd learned to adapt Earth's culinary traditions to alien palates, creating fusion dishes that shouldn't have worked but somehow did. Slowly, reluctantly, customers came. Not many, but enough, until the decree. 3 weeks ago, the Council had issued Directive 7 Alpha. Human establishments in Council space would be phased out to make room for progressive enterprises. The Ember had 2 months to close. Rowan had barely lasted one before making his decision. Why drag out the inevitable? He moved through the kitchen, extinguishing burners, cleaning surfaces with mechanical precision. Each action felt like a small death. The knife block his daughter had sent him from Earth. The cast iron skillet that had survived 3 station riots. The spice rack containing ingredients from 40 different worlds. Goodbye, he whispered to the empty room. The front door chimed. Rowan's jaw tightened. He'd locked it an hour ago. "We're closed," he called out, not bothering to hide his irritation. Silence, then small footsteps. He turned to find a dragon cub standing in his dining room. Dragons were rare and endangered, actually. The Dragther species had been nearly wiped out in the Dissolution Wars 2 centuries ago. Only a few hundred remained, scattered across the galaxy, protected by council law. This one was small, barely reaching Rowan's waist, with scales that shimmered between copper and gold. Her eyes were too large for her narrow face, giving her an expression of perpetual wonder. "Kid, you shouldn't be here," Rowan said, gentler now. "Where are your parents?" The dragon cup, she couldn't have been more than 5 in human years, tilted her head. Then, with surprising speed, she crossed the room and grabbed Rowan's sleeve with one clawed hand. "Don't go," she said. Her voice was high and melodic, with an odd reverberation that made it sound like 2 people speaking in harmony. Rowan blinked. "What?" "Don't go," the dragon repeated, pulling harder. "Please, Mr. Rowan, don't close the shop." "How do you know my name?" "I've been watching." The dragon cub Fira. He remembered now. He'd seen her pressed against the window on busy nights. Her breath fogging, the glass looked up at him with those impossibly large eyes. "You make fire dance. You make food that smells like home." Something in Rowan's chest twisted. "Your home?" "No." Fira shook her head, scales rustling. "I don't remember my home. The council took me when I was smaller. They say it's for protection, but..." She trailed off, suddenly looking even younger. "Your food smells like what home should be." Rowan knelt down to her level. This close, he could see that Fira was painfully thin, her scales dull in places where they should have gleamed. "When was the last time you ate something real, Fira? Not nutrient paste?" She thought for a long moment. "Never?" The word hit Rowan like a physical blow. This baby had never experienced the simple joy of a real meal. In all his years fighting against the council's sterile efficiency, he'd never quite grasped how deep the tragedy went. "The council says cooking is wasteful," Fira continued, still clutching his sleeve. "They say humans are... She struggled with the word. "Obsolete," Rowan finished bitterly. "But you're not!" Fira's voice rose, almost desperate. "You make beautiful things from fire and spice and love. I see you, every night, the way you smile when someone likes your food. The way you remember what everyone orders. The way you..." She stopped, embarrassed. "The way I what?" "The way you hum when you cook. Like you're happy." Rowan sat back on his heels. When was the last time he'd felt happy? Not satisfied, not content, but genuinely happy. The cooking had become mechanical, a routine he performed to keep the bills paid and the health inspector satisfied. When had he stopped loving it? He looked at Fira's desperate, hopeful face and felt something crack open in his chest. You want to know a secret? He asked. Fira nodded eagerly. Humans are stubborn. We don't know when to quit. It's gotten us in trouble more times than I can count. Rowan stood, pulling Fira up with him. But it's also how we survived the Ice Age, the Plague Years, the First Contact Wars, and every other impossible thing the universe threw at us. What does that mean? Rowan walked to the kitchen, Fira trailing behind him like a copper shadow. He turned the burners back on, one by one, blue flames springing to life with soft whooshes. He pulled out flour, eggs he'd traded a week's profits for, butter from a Terran colony freighter. It means, he said, tying his apron back on, that I'm not closing. Let the council come. Let them try to phase me out. I've got a customer who's never had a real meal, and that's not acceptable. Fira's eyes went wide. You'll stay? For me? Not just for you. Rowan cracked an egg into a bowl, the familiar motion steadying him. For every being on this station who's been told that efficiency matters more than experience. That survival is enough, he began whisking. Humans learned a long time ago that survival isn't living. You need beauty, joy, tradition, things that make no logical sense but feed the soul anyway. Within minutes, the kitchen was alive again. Rowan moved with renewed purpose, pan heating, butter sizzling, the smell of vanilla and cinnamon filling the air. He made simple pancakes, his grandmother's recipe golden and perfect, topped with real maple syrup that cost more than most beings made in a month. He placed the plate in front of Fira, who stared at it like it was the most precious thing in the universe. What do I do? She whispered. You eat, Rowan said simply. And you remember that some things are worth keeping even when the whole galaxy tells you otherwise. Fira took her first bite, her eyes closed. A sound escaped her throat. Not quite a purr, not quite a hum, but something ancient and deeply satisfied. When she opened her eyes again, they were wet. This is what home tastes like, she said. Rowan nodded, his own vision blurring. Yeah, kid. It is. Outside, Station Kronos continued its indifferent rotation. The council would come eventually, with their directives and their efficiency reports. But tonight, in a small restaurant that refused to die, a human chef taught a dragon cub that some flames were meant to burn forever. And in the morning, when other beings saw the lights on and smelled the impossible aromas, they would come. One by one, then in groups, drawn by something their nutrient paste could never provide. The ember would not go quietly, because humans never did. And neither, it turned out, would their friends.